Hey, welcome back to the Dr. Jimbo Love Show featuring Seth Matthew. We are here at Brothers Bar and Grill in the shops in Northfield. Week 1, first games of the NFL season will be starting here in less than an hour.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. I mean, we kicked off on Thursday with the returning Super Bowl champ against Buffalo, and now, we get into the thick of things with a majority of teams playing Broncos Seattle, obviously, on Sunday.
Absolutely. But before we get into the NFL, let's talk a little bit about the full slate of college football games we had yesterday.
Yeah.
Had some major upsets that just surprised all of us and really rocked the betting world. First of all, we talked a little bit about South Carolina, Arkansas, and South Carolina, lost 44-30. We have Bama versus Texas, and Notre Dame versus Marshall, Texas A&M versus App State, Wisconsin, Washington State, Texas Tech, Houston, and we'll go down the list of these other teams and talk a little bit also too about Air Force and them getting absolutely handling CU.
Yeah.
Crushing them.
We saw that kind of coming.
Yeah. I mean, we just know that CU cannot stop the run, and Air Force, and we'll talk in depth about this, they had 4 or 5 running backs that just ran all over CU. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about Scott Frost in Nebraska. They lost to Georgia Southern last night, 45-42. And Scott Frost has got, with a 1-2 start, to be on the hot seat. Remember, his buyout for his contract after the 1st of October is only $8 million. Will they stick with him, or will they pull what Florida did last year and get rid of Dan Mullins before the season's even over? What are your feelings on that? Do you think, what are the people saying here that come in, Nebraska fans, about Scott Frost?
Yeah, well, I think that he's been given his time already. You're supposed to turn the program around. You're obviously failing. Georgia and Southern shouldn't even be in the same, class level as you, and at the end of the day, you're dropping those types of games. I mean, before it was acceptable because you were sticking in games against better opponents. And it seems like you're regressing rather than improving. And so I think you end it now. You get a guy in there. He tries to change the culture. Will they get good this year? No. But at least he can develop a culture with underclassmen that he's going to get back the next year, and you can build on from that. But I think it's Scott Frost. I would just cut him now.
Get rid of him. And, like we were talking about the buyout marketably changes after the 1st of October. He's in his 5th season, and, as much as Nebraska fans absolutely love him, he's a hometown kid. He grew up just outside of Lincoln. He played quarterback, was a Heisman Trophy candidate back in the day. But if you're not winning, and this is your 5th season, and you're losing, almost the majority of his games he loses are all one-score games.
Yeah.
So that comes down to really where you have to ask yourself, is it the personnel or is it the coaching? And, you've had 5 seasons to get guys in through the transfer portal. You have to kind of look back and say maybe it is the coaching and the coaching staff.
Well, and if you're losing consistently by 1 score, at the end of the day, it was kind of what I thought about Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. Is it the way you're calling plays? Are you getting comfortable and trying to sit on leads? Are you playing down all the time because you come in too conservative? Are you not aggressive enough? Whatever the case is, he's just not good enough right now. And I'm not saying he can't be a head coach for somebody else and be successful, but obviously what he's doing in Nebraska is not working.
Exactly. Well, let's get into it. Let's start off with our first game, and that's Carolina versus Arkansas in Fayetteville. And again, Seth called this last week. This was going to be a really tough game for South Carolina. Spencer Rattler struggled. He's not as accurate as he was, as he was at OU.
Well, he only had 1 accurate year in OU. He had his really good first year. Second year, he struggled and looked terrible, and that's why Caleb Williams took over the job.
Okay.
And that's why they released him in the transfer portal, is because he just wasn't the guy there. I do give him a little credit, though, because when he played Arkansas is a tough defense. People are picking Arkansas to upset Alabama later this season. And so I think he did well enough. I mean, I think it was a lot to ask him to beat Arkansas. I mean, at least they kept it within 14. So, I mean, hats off for the effort.
Right, and South Carolina's offensive line needs to get better. They're not giving him as much time as he needs. Although South Carolina was running against a 3-4 defense, and I'm surprised, that Beamer didn't run the ball more. I mean, when you have they had almost nobody in the box, and they were still trying to throw the ball. I just would have gone to the running game a little bit earlier than what South Carolina did. And then, of course, offensively speaking, Arkansas's tough. I mean, they scored 44 points. So we'll have to be watching. We'll be watching them this year in the West. They seem to be the second or third best team in the West if you're going to look at Alabama. Now, let's move into the Alabama-Texas game. Is Alabama as good as we thought?
That's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, they have the players. Again, the players didn't rise to the occasion. They almost lost this game to a backup quarterback, and if it wasn't for a young kicker on Texas to miss that field goal right going into halftime to take the lead, Texas wins this game.
Absolutely.
Texas can't even beat Oklahoma, and you're telling me they're going to beat Alabama? I predicted this to be a blowout. It turned out to be Alabama squeezing it out in the last 10 seconds on a field goal.
Yep. 2019 was the score, and it was a 33-yard field goal by their senior kicker.
And that's where I'm going with. I think Arkansas does have the capability of beating Alabama, but I mean, I've thought that before in previous years, back in the days, Darren McFadden, Ryan Mallett on Arkansas, and they fall short. But Alabama does look susceptible to a loss, so we'll just have to wait and see. I feel bad for the team that they play next week because I know it is a smaller college, and Nick Saban's going to make them run up the score. He's not happy with the way they played.
Not at all. He was furious after the game, actually.
Well, because he was cussing out his team because his team did the horns down after they won the game and barely won, and he literally cussed them out, and he had a mic on him.
Yeah. Well, Alabama ended up having 15 penalties.
Yep.
So those guys are going to be, I would hate to be in the film room with the Alabama players. Probably today they'll be watching film, and Saban is going to rip them a new ass time. Notre Dame craps the bed. We hear all these great chants, "We are Marshall." If you remember watching the movie "We Are Marshall" with Matthew McConaughey. 26-21. This game was close at halftime. It was 9-7, and both quarterbacks struggled for Notre Dame. 3 total interceptions, a pick 6 late in the game, sealed it for Marshall. I mean, what do you think about Notre Dame? Now they shouldn't even be in the top 25.
I haven't thought Notre Dame's been good for a while. I mean, last year they're always sitting around the top 10, and it's based off merit, off your name. If Alabama had 4 losses, I bet you they're still in the top 25. Notre Dame was kind of the same way. They haven't shown that they were good this year. They haven't shown they were good last year. They beat maybe one good opponent, and then they had tune-up games pretty much all season because they're not in a conference. So them losing to Marshall doesn't really shock me. Marshall's been a rebuilding program, and they've always been decent on the offensive side of the ball. That's where Randy Moss came from. Let's speak about it.
That's right. And we should talk a little bit about the Sun Belt Conference because they had 3 huge wins, and this is the first of the 3 wins. We had Marshall, we had Georgia Southern beating Nebraska, and we also had App State. Okay, and we're going to talk about App State beating Texas A&M next. So what do you think? Do you think Notre Dame just drops completely out of the top 25?
No, they won't do that to Notre Dame. It's still Notre Dame at the end of the day. Right. My guess is they drop to like 23. I don't think they'll drop all the way out.
Keep them in there still.
And that's just based on it's Notre Dame at the end of the day. Big fan base, big TV ratings. It goes to like the respective conferences. You look at Cincinnati going undefeated. How long did it take them to get up there? UCF, when they had their good years, how long did it take them to get up there? Alabama could have 2 losses and there could still be a team with 1, and Alabama's still top 2 in the country. So it's the same thing with Notre Dame. They may have lost this game, but if they were to win out, I guarantee you they'll probably be a top 5, top 6 team.
They do. They just keep wanting to put them up there. They've had 42 games in a row against non-ranked opponents that they have won. So this is really unprecedented for Notre Dame, and there's a lot of stuff going on in South Bend this morning. A lot of unhappy people. The next game we talk about, Texas A&M loses to App State 17-14. Appalachian State had Bryce. He was 15 for 30, 134 yards. That's their quarterback. Their running back Peoples had 112 yards rushing. A&M's quarterback King, 13 for 20, only 97 yards. The rest of their running backs combined for a total of 89 rushing yards.
Yeah, if this is week one, I would have been more shocked. But after watching Appalachian State in week one when they played North Carolina, I'm a little surprised at how low scoring this game was because, you know, Appalachian State when they were in North Carolina, they almost both got to 50, or they did both get to 50.
It was
a lot.
60. They scored 60. What was it? 62 points, 62-59 or something like that. Or was 60?
So no defense, high-powered offense.
64-61.
Appalachian State has beaten a top 10 team before. If we all remember back to Michigan back in, I believe, 2005. So I mean, Appalachian State's the team to do it. And I mean, this stuff happens. I mean, we almost had the South Dakota Jackrabbits beat Iowa week one.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but Iowa's not Texas A&M, and
True.
they're also not an SEC school.
It's true, but Iowa, if you remember, less than 5 years ago was almost top of the Big Ten, top 5 in the country.
Yeah.
A&M, they're ranked based on beating Alabama last year, but other than that, A&M's not been in the top 10 for the last 10 years.
Right. They had the #1 recruiting class for this year, and also too, they were picked preseason to be possibly the #2 team in the entire SEC. So for them to lose to a Sun Belt Conference team, I was shocked. Jimbo Fisher was shocked.
Well, I think what the big thing shows, I mean, with Alabama struggling against Texas A&M doing this, SEC may not be as strong as people have lived on. SEC is always known as the top schools. Big Ten gets thrown in there after, but SEC struggling so far. And will they dial it in? Yes, they will. But as of right now, I don't think they're the best conference.
Interesting. Who do you think the best conference is?
You know, if you look at it, it's hard to
best?
pick this early because I mean,
The Sun Belt with their 3 victories last night.
Sun Belt technically could be. I mean, the Big Ten's showing not terrible, but they even have some losses. So right now, the big conferences are really stumbling out the gate early. I think it's too hard to pick a conference that's going to be #1 right now, but nobody's really earning that title as the toughest conference in college football.
Okay, interesting. We have Wisconsin, another upset.
Yep, that's the Big Ten one.
And, you know, Wisconsin loses 17-14 to Washington State. Washington State's 2-0. You know, for those of you who don't know who Washington State is, they're famous because they have somebody who has a huge flag that has been at every college game day for the past 20 years. So when you see that Washington State flag flying, and ESPN is starting to highlight it, they actually highlight it in their opening, that's really what Washington State's been all about the last 20 years. And for them to come in and beat Wisconsin in Wisconsin, big win for them. Did you get a chance to see any of that game at all?
I was actually watching the Gophers.
Okay.
But the
how did the Gophers do?
They won. I believe they won 55-10.
Okay.
Right now there had to have been more than that because I think they only scored 38 in their first. But right now they have 100 points for, and they only have 10 against on the season. And with Wisconsin losing, Wisconsin was a top 25 team. Minnesota's unranked. Get it? Both their games weren't that difficult.
How'd your running back do? He
killed it every time. That's just what Ibrahim does. And you know what? With Wisconsin losing, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State are all on one side. Minnesota only has to get through Wisconsin and Iowa. Both teams look terrible this year. Minnesota's looking at it, trending in the right direction. Minnesota's probably going to make the Big Ten championship out of their side this year. Wow. They have a big test coming on week 4. They play Michigan State, and next week they're going to beat up on CU probably by 50 points.
Oh yeah, I mean, and we'll get to that game in just a little bit. You know, Air Force had their way with CU, just absolutely embarrassed them, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Let's talk a little bit about Tennessee. Tennessee came in 24th against number 17 Pitt. They played at Heinz Field. What a game. 34-27, Tennessee pulls it out in overtime. Hooker for Tennessee was 27 for 42, 325 yards. their wide receiver Tillman had 9 receptions for 162 yards. Pitt struggled a little bit. Slovis, 14 for 24, 95 yards, 1 interception, which was right in the end zone at the end of the first half. Could have been the difference in the game if that kid could have caught it. And then the main thing you'll see if you watch ESPN is you'll see their tight end Bartholomew. He catches a pass, and this is Pitt's Bartholomew. He hurdles a Tennessee defender and scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
Did you see that play?
I did. I actually had some Tennessee fans here yesterday, so we had the game on. But I think the biggest story here is Pittsburgh. When you get into these graduates and things like that, losing a caliber of a quarterback like Kenny Pickett, going pro, who's probably going to be starting, my guess, by week 6, if not earlier.
We'll see today.
Yeah, we'll see how today's game goes. You might see Kenny Pickett in there.
Trubisky throws off his back foot way too much.
Yeah, well, so Mitch was always a good quarterback. But when he got pro, he was turnover prone, everything. He's getting another shot because of the way he played in Buffalo. He came in a couple times and he basically played perfect. Yeah. So people are thinking maybe he's calmed it down a lot. But today will be a big test.
It really will.
But I just think it's a hats off to Pittsburgh for really not losing a step. Yeah, you lost to a top 25 team, but losing an NFL caliber quarterback and being able to still compete and lose in overtime to another top 25 team, that just shows you how strong that program is.
Well, they brought in a second-string quarterback. His last name is Patty. He was 9 for 20 for 79 yards. So they do have options. If Slovis doesn't work out for Pitt, they have another guy waiting in the wings.
Well, and it is showing the depth. I mean, I forgot to mention this in the first game. Alabama, Texas. Alabama did not beat the starter of Texas. He got injured right away in the first quarter. A backup quarterback literally carried Texas to almost beat Alabama.
Yep.
And so
good
it just
point.
shows the depth of like these big schools.
Absolutely. The next game is number 20 Kentucky beats number 12 Florida. Big game. It was 26-16. It kind of shows you that Kentucky is for real out of the East. They are 2-0. Florida was held scoreless in the second half. So hats off to Tennessee.
Well, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
University of
Florida
defense.
was overranked a shit ton because of week 1, where they squeaked out a win against a Utah team that was probably overranked. That was ranked 7. So you went from like unranked Florida, throwing them all the way up to 13. Is that all you have to do is win one game and you're in the top 10?
Against
almost?
the Pac-12 team.
Yeah,
less.
it's ridiculous on how high they were ranked. Now, at the end of the day, Florida's more likely like a 20, maybe a 22. Everyone keeps saying Florida's back. They're not back like they used to be. They're just better than how terrible they have been.
How horrible they were last year.
Yeah, so I mean, like, they've gotten better, but let's pump the brakes on Florida a little bit. They're good. They're not great.
I agree. And I think they looked very beatable. And they're in South Carolina's division, the SEC East. So I'm always watching, the Tennessees, the Kentuckys, and all these teams that South Carolina can actually beat on any given day. And I thought that Florida looked pretty vulnerable. KU's quarterback Levis was 13 for 24, 202 yards, 1 interception, 1 touchdown. And the running back for KU, who's got, I think, the best last name of anybody we've seen so far this year, Smoke, ended up contributing 80 yards. BYU Baylor. The only person that had BYU winning on College Game Day was Lee Corso.
I didn't even have him.
Nobody had him. And believe it or not, Vegas had him because BYU was favored.
Well, so everyone thought Vegas was crazy for favoring BYU. So, Baylor, I'm going to say this in a nice way, you're terrible. You might be one of the top worst teams I've ever seen. Why I say that is BYU is ranked. They were missing all of their wide receivers. Their number 1, number 2 wide receiver did not play. Their offense did not exist, basically. And they still beat you. That is literally almost impossible to lose 2 of your best players, and you still lose the game. And Baylor, you're ranked 9. Everybody thought you were going to be able to do it. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
That's like Alabama saying, "Hey, we're gonna sit our starting running back, we're gonna sit a wide receiver, we're not gonna start our starting quarterback this week, and we're still gonna win."
But be careful now. You don't want to piss too many people off down in Waco. You know, those Branch Davidians down there are huge Baylor fans.
Oh man.
You remember David Koresh and all those guys back in the 90s with their compound?
Well, you couldn't beat BYU with half a team. So.
All right, this brings us to our local game, CU versus Air Force. It was a 41-10 drubbing. CU just looked horrible. At halftime, it was 20-10. Again, CU, I think, has a conditioning problem. Their guys get tired. The second half, CU scored 0 points, okay? Again. Remember? It was 7-6 last week against TCU.
CU's biggest issue is they just have a bad football problem. Is they were already picked by Vegas to only get 2 wins on the season. So you're already not coming in to do well.
Right.
It's got to be the lack of recruitment. You're not getting the right players. I don't know if they're losing players based on them picking other schools or if they just do a poor job recruiting. But the guys aren't there. The talent's not there. They're not getting the recruits like they should be. I'm not going to blame the team. I think it's an organization problem where they need to start going out and getting the right players for the right job.
Well,
because
their defense obviously is just so second rate.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot stop the run. And next week when they play against Minnesota Golden Gophers, watch your boy there. It says Abrams is his name.
Yeah,
Abrahams. He's going to run all over him.
Oh,
You know, he may have 250 yards.
Oh yeah. Well, we haven't let him play a whole game at all this
And
year.
he's playing home too. You guys are playing in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so I think we end up Minnesota. Maybe they give up 10 points, but they're going to score 50. They've covered the spread every time. They won by 38 in the first game, and they won by over 50 in the second match. So I mean, CU's going to get trounced. Minnesota, hopefully. You know, there is one possibility of Minnesota losing, and that's they're looking to Michigan State.
Right.
But if they don't look to Michigan State, CU's not going to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got CU's transfer quarterback, J.T. Stroud, took over. He was 5 for 21 for 51 yards. 51 yards passing. This is the Division I football team. Their total rushing yards was 117 yards as a team.
Embarrassing.
It's horrible. Air Force, on the other hand, think about this. Air Force's quarterback, Daniels, he was 1 for 5 for 8 yards passing. Okay? Remember, they scored 41 points. So their running back, Roberts, 174 yards. Eldridge, 88 yards. Larrier, 60 yards. 9 guys rushing, 66 rushing plays that Air Force ran against CU.
Well, that's hats off to the coach right there. You see something that works, why go away?
Yep.
It just shows that they didn't need to throw the ball. Once they realized how successful they were running, there's a lot of coaches that may try to throw a little bit more because they want to keep it balanced. Why fix something that's not broke?
Right.
And that's exactly what Air Force did. They committed to a game plan, and they saw CU was weak on stopping the rush, and they just pounded CU the whole entire day. 9
different runners had 3 or more carries for Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
That is old school. You know, shove it down. You know, three downs in a cloud of dust. And in this case, there was probably not a whole heck of a lot of dust because they're playing on a turf field. But my goodness.
We'll have to keep an eye on Air Force because they will get destroyed if they run into a team that can stop the run and they can't throw the ball. Obviously, 1 for 5 is not a way to win football games all the time. If they run into, like, I know Arkansas is not on their schedule, but a big defense like that,
sure,
they will struggle and maybe get blown out.
It'll be interesting to see if they make the adjustment, you know, and maybe they bring everybody into the box and they start throwing the ball down the field. We don't know. This guy only threw the ball 5 times.
Yeah.
We don't even know what kind of quarterback he is. You know, we know he can run the ball though. All right, lastly, this brings us to our 10th game that we're going to feature today, and that is Nebraska losing another 1-score game to Georgia Southern. Now, for you guys out there that may not know who Georgia Southern is, they were a Division I AA school up until 2014. And they were one of the best. They used to play, they played against George Mason, they played against James Madison.
So they would have played North Dakota State.
Yep. So they were in that kind of a league, and here we have a Georgia Southern going into Lincoln, Nebraska, and beating Nebraska 45-42.
Yeah.
We have to ask ourselves, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but is Scott Frost going to make it through the month of October? I don't think they're going to get rid of him until his buyout goes down. I think it goes down from like $20 million to $8 million, so it's significant.
Yeah, I mean, they do want to save the money, but at the end of the day, how much do you want to put your fans through?
Right, but after the 1st of October is
it
when
drops to 8.
It drops to 8.
So he'll probably keep it till then. I mean, they've been bad for so long now that what's a couple more games? They can hold on to him. Now, who are they going to get to replace him? I don't know.
Well, they'll do an interim, so it'll be somebody that's already on the staff.
But you got to get a big name for Nebraska. If anyone's going to bring that program back, you can't just go with some nobody interim and stick with them. It has to be somebody bigger. And there's a couple names out there that you could still go get. So, I mean, well, it'll be interesting to see who they put in place.
Yeah. Now, this game was just an outstanding game to watch. I had it on last night, and I was clicking around a little bit, but I kept coming back to this game because at the half it was 28-28, and there was a lot of scoring, and it came right down to the end. And Georgia Southern has a really fun team to watch. Mm-hmm. So if you do get a chance to see them play against some of the bigger squads and stuff like that in the Sun Belt Conference, even in their own conference, watch them. They're fun. All right, so this brings us to Seth's wheelhouse, the NFL.
Here we go.
And let's start off. We had a call earlier from Adam Schefter, and he needs Seth's analysis on this Vikings-Packers game. So for ESPN, go ahead.
Well, it's going to be really interesting to see because ESPN and I do not agree. DraftKings did not agree until this morning. I don't understand how people aren't favoring the Vikings in this game. We have a new system. We have the offensive coordinator from the Rams as our head coach. You're going to see the ball fly more. Justin Jefferson's going to go off. Dalvin Cook, he's fully healthy. And we have Madison as a backup. Adam Thielen's sitting at number 2. We have Jalen Reagor sitting as our punt returner. And we have KJ Osborne, who's really impressed during the preseason. All this said, we're going to throw the ball a lot more. We're not doing the run 50 times a game. And Green Bay has nobody. Right now, they do not have. Devontae Adams is now a Raider. Lassard, supposed to be the man there, is not playing today. So you're sitting with Tanyan. Valdez Scantlin's not even there either. You're sitting with Sammy Watkins and Aaron Jones. So you have 3 players, but it's not a complete team. And everyone keeps saying Green Bay is such a great defense. Since when? Never seen Green Bay play defense. They always survive off Aaron Rodgers destroying. I think Minnesota's defense has greatly improved. I see Minnesota winning by over 10 points. But if you look at Vegas right now, it says that it's a 1-point game. And they just flipped it last night when they officially ruled Lassard out that Minnesota's going to win. And we're at home. How do you not give us credit at home?
And not to interrupt you, but we can hear in the background here the national anthem being played right now for our first games. We want to remember that today is 9/11. And folks out there, all first responders, we have not forgotten you. 21 years ago, we remember 9/11 well. All right, the national anthem is over. We can continue.
Yeah.
So basically with Rodgers, he doesn't really have any wide receivers left, any of his quality wide receivers. So that's going to be kind of a question.
He has 2 rookies going to be out there.
2 rookies,
and then he'll have, I believe, Sammy Watkins, and I don't know if they have a 4th option. They have a 4th option. I just can't think of who it is.
What about the Vikings defense? How are you feeling about your defense?
It's still a little shaky, but I think it's good enough for today. We have, I believe his name's Zach Davis, who came from Green Bay. He wants revenge on his old team because he was supposed to be a top pick. He was supposed to be a great player, and he just had injury problems. Well, he's fully healthy now, and Green Bay had released him. So Minnesota got him. We're looking okay at the linebacker. The big question will be how we cover the pass. I think we'll be able to stop the run today. We're always good at stopping the run at the beginning of the season. Injuries usually make us suck later in the season. So it's going to have to be Aaron Rodgers himself to beat us. And I'm not saying he can't. Right. Aaron Rodgers can do a lot of amazing things. I just think it's disrespectful to say Minnesota's not going to win at home, fully healthy, and Green Bay literally has a banged-up team and just Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, it comes with the respect from last season. Sometimes that trickles in.
We split with them last season, though.
I know, but Green Bay had a better season than Minnesota last year,
Yeah.
so maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. That brings us to our next game, Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati, very close to my heart.
About to kick off.
It's about ready to kick off down there. I'm looking to see if I can see, and it looks like Colt has my TV right in front of me, all set to go. Folks, this is a good time for you to start considering coming down here for the opening day of the NFL season to Brothers Bar and Grill at the Shops in Northfield. Seth will get you any TV in this place. If you want to watch your team, we can put it on for you. He will put it on for you. What's the sound today?
This sound, I believe, is going to be the Cleveland Browns and the Carolina Panthers for the Baker revenge game.
Yeah, and we've got a bartender down there that's a big Browns fan,
Yeah.
and we'll forgive him for that.
And so, I believe the second game sound is going to be Minnesota Green Bay. Of
course.
But Raiders and Chargers do play at that time, but we're going to go Minnesota all the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Pittsburgh has a tough matchup today.
Big time.
It's the first year without Big Ben.
Cincinnati is favored by 6.5 points.
They're starting Trubisky. I don't know if I agree with it, but I understand it. Throwing a rookie in first game is always a little sketchy to do. And so it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be the new Mitch, who doesn't turn the ball over and tears it up, or if it's going to be the Mitch of old, how he played in Chicago, turning it over, not getting the ball out quick enough, and losing yards. I don't know what to expect, because he had that glimmer in Buffalo where he looked amazing. Thought maybe he just had a bad deal in Chicago. This is going to be his time. Looks like he's going to start with the ball.
Well, just remember, he was a second overall draft pick. That the Bears picked him out. So, through the NFL Combine, where they really just go and they look at you so thoroughly, a lot of people felt as though this guy had huge potential, huge upside, and he just has had a very rocky start. Now, what I've seen and what concerns me is that sometimes his mechanics are not as sound. Okay, meaning he throws off his back foot a lot, and he also tries to force balls in. Kenny Pickett on the opposite side, he is a rookie, but he's been extremely accurate. The biggest downside to him was he had too small of hands.
They said the same thing about, wasn't it Russell Wilson?
Yeah, somebody.
Russell Wilson, they criticized his hand size too when he came out.
Which quarterbacks don't need to do what Big Ben used to do, where he throw it, hold it, throw it, hold it. Tom Brady with the tuck. It's a lot about the accuracy. It's a lot about the mechanics. But I do agree with Tomlin's decision to start Trubisky. Again, you touched on this a little bit because of the experience level. But believe me, if Trubisky, stumbles at all, look to see Kenny Pickett. Not maybe today, but later down the road.
I go week 6. If he struggles at week 6, would be about the right time to bring him in.
It'd be right around the bye game, which when they'll make the change.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Najee Harris. He had a little bit of an injury that he hasn't really disclosed with people. A lot of fantasy people were upset about that. Did you hear anything about that during your fantasy draft?
I didn't hear too much about it before, but I did know he was a little banged up. And I mean, at the end of the day, Pittsburgh last year ran him into the ground. Not saying that he's not going to make it through this year, but anytime you do as high a volume that you do as Najee Harris, he was getting the ball like 30 times a game. Like, you can't sustain that for a long career. They did say that they weren't going to use him as much. They were still going to use him a full workload, but they know they over-relied on him last year. And now maybe having a younger quarterback that's able to throw. Ben wasn't really throwing the ball that well last year. Maybe that will relieve some stress. So, I mean, I think he's going to be okay. But those nagging injuries do pile up. And, Tom is a smart guy. I don't think he's going to mess it up.
We'll be watching closely. Now, of course, Cincinnati, they're the runner-up Super Bowl champions. They're coming in with just so many different weapons. It'll be interesting to see. I'm surprised that this margin is not. It's 6.5. I would have probably gone 8 or 9 myself. Cincinnati, because remember, they're playing in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and but I also do think, Cincinnati did overperform a little bit last year. Did Jamar Chase addition, Joe Burrow connection was phenomenal, but is that sustainable forever? No. They're still going to put up yards. I think teams are going to be able to play them a little bit better this year. They had a year to think on it. I still think Bengals win this game, but I don't think Bengals are going to make it as far as they did last year. That was kind of.
Do you think the Steelers will cover the 6.5? Is there anybody out there that can still get a bet in?
It all depends. It really depends on Mitch Trubisky. Without knowing exactly how he's going to play, I don't want to put anything on it. But I think if Mitch Trubisky comes out how he played for Buffalo, I think there's a good chance they keep it within 6.
Okay, excellent. Well, we'll watch and see that. Of course, I'll be watching it really closely as soon as we're done with the show. I'm going to go down and plop myself in front of the TV and have a couple beers here. And remember, we're at Brothers Bar and Grill at the shops in Northfield. Folks, it's not too late to get down here. Remember, there's a whole set of games that don't start till 2:25. So finish up your yard work or whatever else you're doing out there and get down to Brothers and have a beer with us.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Browns and Carolina. That's the game you can hear in the background that's playing right now. Again, the big part of this is you've got Baker Mayfield and Christian McCaffrey playing at home in Carolina. And Will Brissett, the quarterback for the Browns, standing in. What do you think the chances of him having a decent game today?
So Jacoby's gone in before. He's not a bad quarterback. He's a capable quarterback, and honestly, people have been overhyping Cleveland. Everyone keeps saying, or Carolina, they keep saying that Baker's going to get his revenge, whatever. Do people forget about Nick Chubb? At the end of the day, and they got Kareem Hunt. At the end of the day, he doesn't have to do much. And I've already saw the first series a little bit. Carolina went 3 and out. Cleveland just ran the ball for the first time and got 15 yards. So, I mean, I think Baker has his hands full today, but I'm rooting for him. But I do think Cleveland has the edge in this one. I did not bet on him. I bet on Carolina, but we'll see.
Well, you know, I'll be rooting for Carolina for sure. We've got a big game Monday night. The Broncos versus Seattle. Again, I'm almost sick of hearing about it. I just want them to hurry up and play this first game because Bronco fans are chomping at the bit to see how well Russell Wilson. I think it's going to be a really good optics. We're going to get a chance to see Seattle. Do you think the Seattle fans are going to welcome back Russell Wilson, or are there going to be a lot of boos?
Oh, they'll welcome him back. At the end of the day, you got your Super Bowl. You guys are going to be terrible without him until you find a new quarterback. Geno Smith's not the guy. We proved it for the last, 8 years he's been in the league.
Yeah.
He can't, he's just not that good. And, I mean, you still have Metcalf, great player. Lockett, still a great player. Running back is okay for them. But the Broncos, the Broncos are going to take this one. Russell Wilson's not going to let them lose regardless if it's an away game. Do I think that the Broncos are going to be Super Bowl like everybody else? No. Do I think they make playoffs? Honestly, I'm 50-50 on that if that even happens. It's going to be a tough year. This division, best in football in my opinion.
Big time.
And that's coming from Minnesota. I would love to say it's my division, but it's definitely not.
No.
I mean, the Chiefs have improved, the Chargers have improved, the Raiders have improved, and the Broncos have improved. This one will be the toughest division where I think that maybe 9 or 10 wins gets you into playoffs out of this division to win the division, because I think a lot of these are going to be splits. I don't think many teams are getting swept in this division.
Yep. I think it's going to be interesting to see if they end up beating each other up to the point where the second place team doesn't make the wild card because, you know, they play against each other and they exchange so much. They may have a bunch of different losses. It'll be interesting to see.
Score update: Pittsburgh just pick 6.
Pick 6?
Pick 6. Joe Burrow.
Right on. All right. Way to go, Steelers.
Woo.
All right. 7 out of 8 analysts are predicting a Bronco victory. Lastly, and we're not going to get into this too much, but just you know, to go around the world a little bit, we've got the soccer team that Ryan Reynolds and a buddy from sunny in Philadelphia, Rob McElhenney, I believe his name is, Rob McElhenney. They bought Wrexum Soccer. They are the Dragons. They're in the Welsh Professional Association of Football. And just to give you perspective, it is the 5th tier English soccer league. So, like, to give people a perspective, how low is that league? Like,
It's almost the lowest. I mean, I think there is a couple
it like
lower.
Semi-pro?
Basically, so it'd be like the way they do it in soccer is very unique. So if we added 30 more teams and gave them to 30 states and we made it tier 2, if your team won Tier 2, you got to go to Tier 1. If your team finished last in Tier 1, you go to Tier 2. So Wrexum is a very historic club that has been at the top level, and they've fallen on hard times, and they've been on hard times for over 18 years sitting in this league. Now that's unheard of to sit there that long. They had bad ownership at the time. The fans, the guy wanted to destroy the oldest stadium there, and he wanted to just get rid of the soccer team. The fans literally marched on his house, bought the team, took over, and so Ryan Reynolds and
his name is Rob.
Yeah, Rob.
McElhane.
They had to purchase the team,
Ryan.
and they needed 75% approval from the town to get it. And they got it, and they've been doing a lot of good things. They're still stuck in this league, but they're sitting second right now. If they were to finish top 1, it's an automatic bid to go to the next division, and then the players get paid more, you get more sponsorships. Ryan Reynolds and Rob have literally done some amazing things, though, because they both have big TikTok followings, they have social media, they make lots of money on it, so they literally have got money funneling in from TikTok and stuff, and got TikTok to sponsor it and things like that.
That's great. Who was the guy that they got that was an upper tier guy that came down to play in their tier?
I
can't remember his name, but they have a gentleman that they've convinced he's somebody, he plays in a higher tier, so obviously he's a very highly skilled person, but he wanted to come down and actually play on this team, and I thought that was kind of interesting, for the star power.
They've gotten a lot of star power. I mean, at the end of the day, they had to do an overhaul when they got the team. They've owned the team now for about 3 years, I think this is their 3rd season, but the crazy thing about it is like, they have a guy that's basically a legend builder. He's literally been in the lowest tiers and brought teams up as high as the Premier League in their coach. And they also, the manager of Leeds United runs all the operation, is helping them out, helping them run the team, get everybody in place for them. So
that's really cool.
They should be pretty successful going forward. Now, Premier League successful? No, but I think they're out of the bottom tier. It means so much to that town. That town lives and breathes and survives on that football team, and so I just hope, I wish them the best, and they're very fun to watch. Netflix has a documentary called, I believe it's called Welcome to Wrexum, and it interviews a lot of people in the town and stuff. I believe it's ongoing, but just a good show to watch. A little comedy sprinkled in there with those 2 jokesters going on, but.
Yep. And remember, Wrexum, if you're going to your internet and you're trying to pull them up, it starts with a W. It's a silent W. Yeah. So it's WREXUM, soccer. Pull it up. You can read a little bit about the historic. I mean, they're the third oldest soccer organization in the world. They were founded in 1864.
And they were supposed to play this weekend, but obviously with what happened with the Queen passing, all soccer games were called off in England and Wales.
And rightly so. Okay, well, again, come on down to the shops in Northfield. Come into Brothers. Let us know what's going on. Next week, we will talk again about college football. We'll preview some of the pro games. We don't
go first.
Pardon me?
Go Gophers.
Go Gophers. Yeah, good to see you. We're not exactly sure if we'll go on Saturday or Sunday. Again, it will really... It'll be based upon your volume and how many people are going on. Yeah. But in the meantime, folks, come on down to Brothers Bar and Grill on either 11 o'clock on Saturday or 11 o'clock on Sunday and check out the Dr. Jimbo Love Show featuring Seth Matthews.
Yep.
I want to get down and watch the games. How about you?
Me too.
All right, so we're going to end this right now. Folks, get out there and earn it.